The Intergalactic Recreation Center was buzzing with activity on its grand opening day. The massive glass dome showed the stars twinkling above, while hundreds of aliens from different planets walked around in their colorful environmental suits. In the center of it all stood the newly built swimming pool, its crystal-clear water reflecting the starlight. Mike Thompson, the first human swimming instructor in this part of the galaxy, couldn't help but smile as he adjusted his simple black swimsuit. At 6 feet tall with broad shoulders, he stood out among the mostly shorter aliens. He had no idea he was about to cause the biggest shock in the center's history. The pool area was packed with curious aliens. Some had tentacles, others had multiple eyes, and a few even floated above the ground. In the front row stood Zora, a young Xenorian with shimming purple skin and large silver eyes. Like many others, she had come to see what this strange human activity called swimming was all about. Mike stepped onto the diving board, causing several aliens to whisper among themselves. He could hear their translator devices working overtime. What is the human doing? Is this some kind of death ritual? Should we call security? Zara watched with growing concern as Mike walked to the edge of the diving board. Her silver eyes grew even wider when he started bouncing slightly. "Welcome everyone to our first swimming demonstration," Mike announced cheerfully. "Today, I'll show you a simple dive." Before he could finish his sentence, a small alien with antennae shouted, "Stop! You'll die. The hydrogen oxide will dissolve you." Mike chuckled, thinking it was a joke. Without further warning, he did a perfect dive into the pool. The water barely splashed. What happened next was chaos. Hundreds of aliens screamed in terror. Some ran for the exits, others activated their emergency shields, and a few even fainted. Security drones zoomed toward the pool, their lights flashing red. "Human in danger, human in danger," blared the automated warning system. But Mike was simply swimming underwater, completely unaware of the panic above. When he surfaced in the middle of the pool with a bright smile, he found himself surrounded by floating medical pods and rescue drones. "Get out! Get out!" screamed an octopus-like alien, using all 8 tentacles to wave warning signs. "The human is dissolving," shrieked another, covering all 4 of its eyes. Only Zara remained close to the pool, frozen in fascination. Instead of running, she watched as Mike casually swam backstroke, looking completely relaxed. How are you not dead?" she asked, her translator struggling to convey her amazement. Mike stopped swimming and treaded water, looking confused. "Dead? Why would I be dead?" "The deadly hydrogen oxide. You're completely surrounded by it." Zora pointed at the water with a trembling hand. That's when Mike realized something incredible. These aliens had never seen anyone swim before. What humans considered a fun activity, they saw as an extremely dangerous stunt. "Oh, you mean water?" Mike laughed, splashing a little. Several aliens jumped back another 10 feet. "It's perfectly safe for humans. We're actually made of mostly water ourselves." The entire room went silent. You could hear a pin drop, or in this case, a drop of water splash. "Made of water." Zara's silver eyes somehow got even bigger, her purple skin turning slightly pale. "Yeah, we drink it too," Mike added helpfully, not realizing he was making things worse. Several more aliens fainted. The center's director, a tall crystalline being, quickly floated to the pool's edge. "Mr. Thompson, please exit the hydrogen oxide immediately. We need an emergency meeting about this unexpected development." As Mike climbed out of the pool, completely unharmed, he noticed something interesting. While most aliens looked horrified, Zara was still watching him with curiosity rather than fear. There was something in her silver eyes, not terror, but wonder. "How did it feel?" she whispered when he passed by her. Mike smiled, running a hand through his wet hair. "Like freedom," he answered simply. Zara looked back at the gently rippling pool, then at Mike again. A small smile appeared on her purple face. And that's how the greatest change in intergalactic history began, with a simple dive and one curious alien's question. 3 days after the pool incident, Mike sat in his office, staring at a stack of cancellation notices. Every alien who had signed up for swimming lessons had backed out. Well, almost every alien. A soft knock on his door made him look up. Zara stood there, her purple skin glowing slightly in the dim light, a sign of nervousness among Xenorians. "You actually came," Mike said, surprised. "I brought protection," Zara replied seriously, holding up what looked like a sealed spacesuit, 3 different types of force fields, and something that resembled a life-sized hamster ball. Mike tried not to laugh. "You won't need any of that." "But the Council of Elders said." Zara stopped mid-sentence as Mike pulled out a small glass of water from his desk. "Watch," he said, taking the sip. Zara's silver eyes tracked the movement like a prey watching a predator. "See, totally safe." "You drink it." Zara's translator squeaked so loudly it short-circuited, sending tiny sparks flying. "We cook with it too," Mike added, enjoying her reaction. "Take showers in it. Clean things with it." Zara collapsed into a chair, her skin now glowing bright enough to illuminate the whole office. "Our scientists say hydrogen oxide, water, can dissolve organic matter. That's why no one goes near the acid lakes on my planet." "Acid lakes?" Mike leaned forward. "Wait, what kind of water do you have on your planet?" "Water." Zara looked confused. "Oh, you mean hydrogen oxide. Ours is different. It's mixed with sulfuric compounds. One touch, and she made a sizzling sound while wiggling her fingers. Mike's eyes widened. "That explains everything. Your planet's water is dangerous. But Earth water, what we have here, is different." "Different how?" Zara's glow dimmed slightly as curiosity overtook fear. Mike pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's water molecule. "See, just H2O, no sulfur, no acid. Pure water." Zara moved closer to the display, her scientist's mind engaging. "Fascinating. But how do you survive being surrounded by it?" "How about I show you?" Mike stood up. "No space suit needed. Just trust me." Zara's skin flickered between bright and dim, the Xenorian equivalent of having an internal debate. Finally, she stood up. "My father says I'm too curious for my own good. He's probably right." At the pool, Mike sat at the edge, feet in the water. Zara watched from 5 feet away, still clutching her force field generator. "The secret," Mike explained, "is that humans learned to swim millions of years ago. It's part of our history, our culture. Some scientists think we even came from the water originally." "Impossible," Zara exclaimed. Then she paused. "Although there is an ancient Xenorian legend about creatures who mastered the acid lakes, we thought it was just a story." Mike patted the space beside him. "Want to make history? First Xenorian to touch safe water." Zara's skin glowed brighter than ever, but she took a small step forward. Then another. And another. "I studied the molecular structure," she muttered, seemingly to herself. "No sulfuric compounds. Basic pH temperature. Non-lethal. Surface tension. Manageable." She was now standing right beside Mike. "Just one finger," Mike encouraged. "That's all it takes to start a revolution." Zara extended one trembling finger toward the water. The entire pool area went quiet. Even the cleaning drones stopped to watch. Her finger touched the surface. Nothing happened. "It's warm," Zara whispered in awe. Her finger created small ripples in the water, and her skin began to glow with a new pattern, the Xenorian expression of joy. "Want to know something cool?" Mike asked. "Those ripples you're making, they follow mathematical patterns. Every wave can be calculated." Zara's eyes lit up at the mention of mathematics. She immediately stuck her whole hand in the water, watching the ripples with scientific fascination. "The variables," she exclaimed. "The fluid dynamics, the thermal conductivity, This is incredible. Mike smiled. He'd found the perfect way to connect with her, through science. Just then, a group of young aliens peeked around the corner, watching Zara with amazement. One of them held up a recording device. "Looks like you're about to become famous," Mike chuckled. Zara didn't even notice. She was too busy calculating the wave patterns with her free hand while her other hand swirled in the water. "Mike?" she finally asked, not looking up from the ripples. "Yeah, I want to learn everything. Not just about swimming. About Earth's water, its properties, its possibilities." Her silver eyes met his. "Will you teach me?" Mike grinned. "On one condition. You help me teach others." Zara looked at her hand in the water, then at the growing crowd of curious onlookers. "Deal," she said. "But first, explain something to me. What's this rain I read about in Earth's files?" Mike's laugh echoed through the pool area. This was going to be interesting. News travels fast in space. By the time Zara arrived for her first official swimming lesson, the pool area was packed with spectators from 12 different species. Some came to watch what they thought would be a disaster. Others were genuinely curious about this strange human practice. "Today's observation will be recorded for the Galactic Science Academy," announced a floating orb-shaped robot. "First documented case of voluntary xenorian immersion in H2O." Zara stood at the pool's edge wearing what she called a compromise outfit, a regular Earth swimsuit with 6 different monitoring devices attached to it. 3 holographic screens floated around her, displaying her vital signs. "Is all that really necessary?" Mike asked, already in the pool. "The monitors?" "No," Zora admitted, "but they make my father feel better. He's watching via quantum stream." As if on cue, one of the screens flickered to show an older Xenorian's worried face. His skin was flashing warning patterns in rapid succession. "Zara, daughter, your bravery brings honor to our science clan," he said formally, then switched to a more panicked tone. "But please remember your emergency teleporter." "Yes, father," Zara sighed, patting a small device on her wrist. She turned to Mike. "He's been researching human swimming all week. He found something disturbing called belly flops." Mike couldn't help laughing. "We'll avoid those." The first step was simply sitting at the pool's edge, like before. But this time, Zara had a surprise for everyone. "I developed this," she said, pulling out a small device. "It analyzes water composition in real time. Look." She dipped the device in the pool. Immediately, a huge hologram appeared above the water, showing the molecular structure of H2O dancing in 3D. The alien audience let out a collective ooh. "Water molecules form temporary hydrogen bonds," Zora explained, her scientist's enthusiasm showing. "They're constantly breaking and reforming, creating a fluid network that." She stopped, noticing Mike's amused expression. "Sorry. Science mode." "No, this is perfect," Mike said. "Understanding the water might help you feel more comfortable in it." Zara nodded, and to everyone's surprise, slid her feet into the pool. The monitoring devices went crazy, but nothing bad happened. "Temperature is optimal," she reported. "No chemical reactions detected. Surface tension holding steady." Her skin began glowing with excitement patterns. "And the sensation is fascinating." That's when something unexpected happened. The water around Zora's feet began to glow with the same patterns as her skin. "Oh," she exclaimed, "I forgot to mention. Xenorian bioluminescence can transfer through molecular contact." The pool now looked like a galaxy of swirling colors, each ripple creating new patterns of light. The spectating aliens moved closer, mesmerized. "This is amazing." Mike watched the lights dance around his feet. "Why didn't this happen last time?" "It only happens when we're emotionally engaged," Zara explained. "Last time I was too scared. Now I'm excited." A young Martian child, who had been watching with his parents, suddenly spoke up. "Pretty lights. Can I try?" "Absolutely not." His mother pulled him back. But Mike noticed she was staring at the glowing water with poorly hidden interest. "You know," Zara said thoughtfully, "different species might create different effects in water. The chemical and physical properties could interact in unique ways." Mike recognized that tone. It was the same one she'd used when discovering wave patterns. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Zara's skin flashed in agreement patterns. Interspecies water interaction study. We could combine swimming lessons with scientific research. She turned to address the crowd, her voice taking on a formal scientific tone. "Fellow galactic citizens, who would like to participate in a groundbreaking research project about species-specific aquatic interactions?" The crowd murmured. Science was a universal language in the galaxy, and research participation looked good on interplanetary resumes. A tentacled octopodian raised 3 arms. What would this research entail? Simple observation of different species' interactions with pure H2O, Zara explained. Plus, you'll learn a valuable Earth skill. 2 achievements for 1 effort. Slowly, tentacles, appendages, and various alien limbs started raising. Even the Martian mother from earlier reluctantly lifted her hand. Mike watched in amazement as Zara began organizing the volunteers into research groups. She had transformed from a scared observer into a confident scientist in mere minutes. "Oh," Zara suddenly remembered something. "Mike, that rain thing you mentioned. I have an idea about that too." She pointed upward at the dome's environmental controls. Her skin was glowing with what Mike now recognized as her "I'm about to suggest something crazy" pattern. Mike looked up, then back at her growing smile. "You want to make it rain. In here." For science. Zara's skin flashed with excitement. "Think about it. Controlled precipitation in a closed environment. We could study everyone's reactions to atmospheric water." The monitoring devices were beeping wildly now, but nobody was paying attention to them anymore. The future of interspecies water relations was about to get very interesting indeed. The Great Rain Experiment, as it came to be known, didn't go exactly as planned. Standing in the middle of the now empty pool, Zara adjusted the settings on her weather control device, while Mike helped the facility's engineers modify the dome's environmental systems. Above them, dark clouds were forming. "Are you sure about this?" Mike asked, watching nervous aliens press against the observation windows on the upper levels. "Absolutely." Zara's skin pulsed with confidence patterns. "I've calculated everything. The rain will be exactly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, human body temperature, perfect for first contact with atmospheric water." That's when the galactic news crews arrived. Breaking news. A hovering newsbot announced. First controlled Earth-style precipitation experiment in an alien facility. Live coverage starting in 3, 2. Zara looked at the growing media circus and whispered to Mike, "Perhaps we should have kept this quieter." "Too late now," Mike grinned, ready to make history again. Zara straightened her lab coat. She'd insisted on wearing one over her swimsuit, and nodded. Her skin glowed with determination patterns that now seemed to ripple like water themselves, a new feature she'd developed since starting her swimming lessons. The first drops fell slowly, each one creating tiny bioluminescent ripples where they hit the pool floor. The assembled aliens gasped in unison. "Fascinating," exclaimed Dr. Xylophone, a crystalline being who joined Zora's research team. "The drops are forming perfect spheres due to surface tension." His crystal facets sparkled with academic excitement. Then things got interesting. A young flotillion, a species that naturally hovers above ground, discovered something unexpected. The raindrops passing through their anti-gravity field created miniature rainbow effects. "Look!" The flotillion child spun in circles, trailing rainbow streams behind them. "We're making sky colors." Other flotillions couldn't resist trying it. Soon, the upper part of the pool area was filled with dancing, rainbow-trailing aliens. The octopodians, who'd been skeptical at first, discovered that their tentacles could catch multiple drops at once, creating complex patterns of water beads that reflected light in mesmerizing ways. It's like liquid crystal mathematics, one octopodian professor observed, juggling water drops with all 8 tentacles. Even the Martian family from the previous day had returned. The mother, who'd been so protective before, was now cautiously letting her child catch drops on a special hyperphobic force field she'd invented, combining safety with exploration. But the biggest surprise came from the photosynthians, plant-based aliens who'd been quietly observing for days. As the warm rain fell on their leaf-like appendages, they began to glow. "This is incredible," a photosynthian elder's leaves quivered with excitement. "The pure H2O is enhancing our natural light absorption process. We're photosynthesizing at 300% efficiency." Zara was frantically recording data on multiple floating screens, her skin flashing with so many patterns of excitement that she looked like a purple disco ball. "Mike," she called out, "each species is interacting with water in completely unique ways. The flotillians' anti-grav fields, the octopodians' surface tension manipulation, the photosynthians' enhanced biological processes. This is revolutionary." But Mike was watching something else, the growing crowd of alien children who had started copying him. He'd begun catching raindrops on his tongue, a simple human gesture that was causing ripples of amazement through the younger generation. "Sometimes," he said to Zara, "the best science starts with play." Zara paused her frantic data recording and watched as an impromptu game developed. Children from different species were competing to catch drops in their various ways, some with tentacles, others with force fields, a few with light-bending abilities. "Speaking of play," Mike added with a mischievous grin, ready to try something really crazy. He pointed to the shallow end of the pool where some water had collected. Zara's skin flickered with nervous patterns, but she nodded. "For science." "For science," Mike agreed. Together, they walked to the edge of the accumulated water. The newsbots swarmed closer. The children stopped playing to watch. Even the photosynthians paused their enhanced photosynthesis. Zara took a deep breath and stepped into the ankle-deep water. Her bioluminescence immediately transformed the shallow pool into a galaxy of swirling colors. Then, slowly, she sat down in the water. The collective gasp from the crowd almost drowned out the sound of rain. But Zara was beaming, her skin creating the most beautiful pattern Mike had ever seen. The Xenorian expression for pure joy. "I think," she said, watching the rain create ripples all around her, "we're going to need a bigger research budget." Above them, a flotillian child accidentally discovered that spinning really fast in the rain created a water spiral, and chaos erupted once again as everyone tried to replicate the effect. The Galactic Science Academy's servers nearly crashed from the influx of research applications that followed. As it turned out, playing in the rain was not just a human thing anymore. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting was interrupted by the sound of splashing. Through the Grand Chamber's windows, the stern council members could see the newly installed aquatic research lab. What was once a simple swimming pool had evolved into something extraordinary. Zara was there, leading a group of alien scientists through what she called advanced water dynamics. "Order," demanded High Counselor Verks, their crystalline form vibrating with annoyance. "We are here to discuss the growing water situation." On the massive holographic screen, images flashed. Flotillian children creating water tornadoes with their anti-gravity fields, photosynthians developing new glowing patterns after water exposure, and most alarmingly, a group of young octopodians who had invented something they called water ballet. "It's spreading to other stations." Another counselor waved their tentacles at the data. 3 space stations have already requested swimming pool installations. The Martian embassy is demanding rain rooms. Meanwhile, in the lab below, Zara was making another breakthrough. "Watch this." She had developed a new technique combining Xenorian bioluminescence with water movement. As she moved through the water, patterns of light followed her movements, creating a mesmerizing display of bioreactive water art. Mike, who was teaching a group of crystalline beings about floating, they were naturally buoyant, and found it hilarious. Couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. What started as a simple swimming lesson had evolved into an interstellar water revolution. Suddenly, all activities stopped as a deep rumble shook the facility. Through the massive windows, everyone could see a huge ship approaching the station. Its design was ancient, covered in symbols that made the older aliens gasp. "The Aquarians," someone whispered. The legendary water-dwelling species hadn't been seen in 1,000 years, having retreated to the deep oceans of their home world after deciding the rest of the galaxy was too dry for meaningful interaction. A transmission crackled through the station's communication system. "We noticed you've developed an interest in hydrogen oxide interactions. Perhaps it's time we talked." The council chamber erupted in chaos. The Aquarians were known for their advanced technology and profound understanding of fluid dynamics. Their return could change everything. But they weren't the only surprise visitors that day. Zara. Mike pointed to another alert on their screens. "Your father is here." Zara's skin flashed with surprise patterns. "What?" "He never leaves our homeworld's research labs." Dr. Kale, Zora's father, entered the lab wearing what appeared to be a modified environmental suit covered in scientific instruments. His skin was glowing with complex patterns Mike had never seen before. "Daughter," he announced formally, then broke into excited flashing patterns. "Your water interaction research has inspired a breakthrough. We found a way to purify our world's acid lakes." He pulled out a small device, similar to Zora's original water analyzer, but much more complex. "By applying the principles of Earth-water molecular structure, we can potentially transform our deadly lakes into something similar to this." He gestured to the pool. The implications were staggering. Sonoria's acid lakes had made large portions of their planet uninhabitable. This could change everything for their species. Just then, an Aquarian delegation emerged from their ship, towering beings that seemed to be made of living water themselves. They moved with impossible grace, their bodies occasionally becoming translucent. The head Aquarian spoke, their voice sounding like waves on a shore. "We've been watching your experiments. Particularly interesting is the combination of Sonorian bioluminescence with H2O. We haven't seen such innovation in fluid dynamics since our own early days." Zora's father's instruments were going crazy trying to analyze the Aquarians. "Fascinating. Their molecular structure is unlike anything in our databases." Mike watched as 3 unprecedented events unfolded simultaneously. The Aquarians began sharing their advanced water-based technology. Zora's father started adapting their acid lake purification system. The council frantically tried to maintain order as more alien species arrived, drawn by the news. In the middle of it all, Zora pulled Mike aside, her skin glowing with what he now recognized as her "I have a crazy idea" pattern. "Mike," she said, "what if we combined everything? The Aquarian fluid dynamics, our bioluminescence research, the purification technology, the anti-gravity water art. What if we could create something entirely new?" Before Mike could respond, a young flotillian accidentally created a zero-gravity water sphere that captured the light from a photosyntheon, creating a miniature aurora borealis inside the water ball. The Aquarians immediately started taking notes. "Well," Mike laughed, watching chaos unfold around them, "I guess swimming lessons are about to get a lot more interesting." Zora's skin flashed with determination. "We're going to need a bigger pool." Above them, the council was coming to terms with an undeniable truth. The galaxy's relationship with water would never be the same again. And it all started with one human simple dive. The new Galactic Aquatic Research Center made the original pool look like a puddle. Funded by the Aquarians and designed by a coalition of species, it was a marvel of engineering. Multiple pools of varying depths floated at different gravity levels, connected by shimmering water bridges maintained by Aquarian technology. Bioluminescent patterns from Sonorian researchers danced through the water, creating living maps of fluid dynamics. But today, all activities had stopped. Everyone was watching Zora attempt something unprecedented. "Are you sure about this?" Mike asked, standing beside her at the highest diving platform, a full 50 meters above the main pool. Zara's skin flickered with a complex mix of excitement and nervousness. She wore her latest invention, a swimsuit embedded with Aquarian fluid control technology and photosyntheon light processing crystals. "The calculations are perfect," she replied, though her voice wavered. "The Aquarians confirmed my theory. If we combine their molecular control techniques with Sonorian bioluminescence at the exact moment of water impact." She didn't finish the sentence. They both knew the stakes. This demonstration would either revolutionize their understanding of water-species interaction or become a very public failure. In the observation deck, Zora's father frantically checked his instruments. Beside him, the Aquarian high scholar's liquid form rippled with interest. Representatives from 30 different species waited breathlessly. "Remember," Mike said softly, "sometimes the best science starts with play." Zora finished, her skin glowing with a new pattern, one Mike had never seen before. It looked like starlight on water. She stepped to the edge and dove. What happened next would be talked about for generations. As Zora hit the water, her bioluminescence activated at exactly the same moment as the Aquarian technology in her suit. The water around her began to change, responding to her movements in impossible ways. She wasn't just swimming through it, she was dancing with it. The water formed spirals around her that caught the light from her skin, creating three-dimensional patterns that hung in the air like liquid constellations. Each movement generated new formations, combining fluid dynamics with light in ways that defy physics. The Flotillian children who had mastered water tornadoes watched in awe as Zora created shapes they'd never imagined possible. The photosyntheon's leaves quivered as new light patterns triggered unprecedented growth responses. But the real breakthrough came when she reached the bottom of the pool. Zora touched a small control panel on her suit, activating the final phase of her experiment. The water around her began to resonate at a specific frequency, one that matched the natural vibration of the acid lakes on Xenoria. Through the pool's transparent walls, everyone could see the water changing color, its molecular structure shifting in real time. She was demonstrating, on a small scale, how they could transform her planet's deadly lakes into safe bodies of water. The Aquarian high scholar's form became completely transparent, their species' expression of absolute amazement. "She's done it," Zora's father whispered, his skin pulsing with pride patterns so bright they temporarily overloaded his instruments. "She's found a way to combine all our technologies into something entirely new." Mike watched as Zora rose to the surface, the water moving with her like it was part of her body. She had transformed from a scientist afraid of water into something entirely new, a pioneer in what would soon be called hydroharmonic engineering. But it wasn't over yet. As Zora broke the surface, she raised her hands. The water responded, rising with her in a column of swirling light and color. Then, with a gesture learned from countless hours of practice with Mike, she split the column into thousands of tiny droplets. Each droplet hung in the air, caught between gravity and anti-gravity fields, each one containing a perfect miniature version of the pattern transformation she demonstrated in the pool. The Galactic Council members, who had arrived to evaluate the project's validity, found themselves speechless. Even High Counselor Verx's crystalline form sparkled with reluctant admiration. "Think bigger," Zora announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent facility. "We've been asking the wrong question. It's not about learning to survive in water. It's about learning to communicate with it." The droplets above her began to dance, forming symbols from every alien language present. The Aquarians moved closer, their forms rippling with intense interest. "Each species brings something unique to this research," she continued. "The Aquarians' molecular manipulation, the Flotillians' gravity control, the Photosyntheons' light processing, the Octopodians' pattern recognition, and yes, even the human joy of simply playing in the water." She looked at Mike, her skin glowing with that same starlight on water pattern. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the simplest beginnings. As if to prove her point, a small Martian child broke free from their parent and jumped into one of the low-gravity pools, creating a splash that caught the light just right, sending rainbows dancing across every surface. Instead of panic, the crowd erupted in cheers. Mike couldn't help but laugh. "You know what this means, right?" Zara nodded, already pulling up new research plans on her holographic display. "We're definitely going to need more pools." Above them, the suspended droplets continued their dance, each one holding the promise of new discoveries to come. And somewhere in the crowd, a young alien asked their parent a question that would spark the next chapter of their aquatic adventure. "What's this Earth thing called?" "Surfing." 1 year after the first human dive that changed everything, the Xenorian Planetary Council gathered for a historic moment. Through the massive observation windows of their orbital station, they could see their world's largest acid lake shimmering below. But not for long. Zara stood at the control center, her skin glowing with patterns that mimicked the ripples of clear Earth water. Next to her, Mike watched proudly as his former student prepared to transform her home world. "Ready?" he asked. "Almost," Zara replied, making final adjustments to the massive purification array, a combination of Aquarian molecular manipulation technology, Flotillian gravity controls, and Xenorian bioluminescent monitoring systems. "Still hard to believe this all started with you trying to teach me to swim." The array stretched across the acid lake like a giant web of light, each node containing the same technology she demonstrated in her breakthrough dive. But this was on a planetary scale. Above them, ships from across the galaxy hovered in observation positions. The Aquarian vessel was particularly notable, its liquid metal hull flowing like a waterfall frozen in time. They'd become deeply invested in what they called the Great Water Renaissance. "Broadcasting live across all galactic frequencies," announced the Newsbot network. "First large-scale implementation of hydroharmonic engineering." Zara took a deep breath and pressed her hand to the control panel. Her bioluminescence interfaced directly with the system, another innovation she developed. The entire array lit up with her distinctive starlight-on-water pattern. Then something unexpected happened. As the transformation began, the acid lake didn't just change its molecular structure. It began to sing. The vibrations of countless water molecules shifting created a harmonic frequency that resonated across the planet's surface. "That's not possible," one of the scientists gasped. "Sound shouldn't carry like that through." "Wait," Mike interrupted, remembering something. "Zara, your bioluminescence patterns, they've been changing the surface tension of water since day one. What if?" Zara's eyes widened. Her skin flashed with revelation patterns. The water isn't just being transformed, it's learning, like a massive liquid neural network. The Aquarian high scholars' form became so transparent with excitement they nearly vanished. This was beyond anything they predicted. The acid lake's surface began to ripple in complex patterns, matching Zara's bioluminescence perfectly. Then, remarkably, it began creating its own patterns. "It's responding to us," Zara whispered in awe. "The water, it's trying to communicate." The Galactic Council representatives, watching from their chambers, leaned forward as one. This was no longer just about transforming a deadly lake. They were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. Floating screens showed similar reactions starting in acid lakes across the planet. Each one began resonating with its own unique harmonic signature, but all of them synchronized in a planet-wide aquatic symphony. The photosynthians in attendance began swaying, their leaves capturing and transforming the light patterns into new forms of energy. The Flotillian children, who had snuck into the observation deck, started creating tiny anti-gravity water drops that danced in time with the planet-wide resonance. Mike watched as his simple dream of teaching aliens to swim had evolved into something far beyond imagination. But the best was yet to come. As the final molecular transformations completed, Zora activated the second phase of her plan. The newly purified lakes began to glow with stored bioluminescent energy, creating a network of light across the planet's surface. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all forms," Zara announced, her voice carrying the same confidence that had once trembled at the thought of touching water. "I present to you the first planetary-scale hydrocomputational network. Each lake is now both a recreational facility and a node in a living computer made of pure water." The assembled scientists erupted in excited chatter. The implications were staggering. But most importantly, she continued, her skin glowing with joy, the water is safe for swimming. To prove her point, she did something that made her father's instruments short-circuit in shock. She teleported directly to the lake's surface and dove in. The water welcomed her like an old friend, lighting up with her signature patterns. But now those patterns spread across the entire lake, creating a display visible from orbit. One by one, other Xenorians began appearing at the lake's edges. Children first, then adults, all drawn by the siren song of safe water. The scene repeated at lakes across the planet. The Aquarians, watching from their ship, sent a message that made everyone laugh. "Impressive. But can you surf it?" Mike couldn't help but smile as he remembered Zora's first terrified touch of a swimming pool. Now she was orchestrating planetary transformations and creating water-based computers. Through his earpiece, he heard Zora's voice from the lake below. "Hey Mike, ready to help me teach a few billion Xenorians to swim?" "For science?" he asked, already knowing the answer. The response came not just from Zora, but from the water itself, pulsing with light in perfect harmony. "For science." And somewhere in the Galactic Council chambers, a motion was quietly passed to rename their sector of space. The new name would appear on all star charts going forward. The aquatic arm of the galaxy, where water brings worlds together. All because one human thought it might be fun to take a dip.